So I just wanted to introduce myself. I've met many of you, but certainly not all of you because there's a lot of new names and faces on this webinar, which is great. My name is Mindy Signac, and I am the Director of Strategic Account Management here at APDS. What that means is that I manage a team of strategic account managers and associates that work with customers after their implementation to make sure that you are getting the value that you need and want from the tablet program. So so for those of you that we've worked with a long time, you know that we will constantly set up meetings with you, review your data. We really want to do everything that we can to make sure that this is successful for you. And this is the second of what we're calling our Juvenile webinar series. There's a strong need for our customers to be able to connect with each other, to be able to see what everybody's doing. How did one facility implement tablets? What was easy? What was hard? What's in store for us for some of the newer customers? And so we want to make that available to you and have this group of colleagues that come together and that can exchange ideas. In our first webinar, we had Dr. Amy Lopez from DC Jails talk about a lot of programs that she had implemented using the tablets. And in this webinar, we are very excited to have two presentations, one from colleagues in Red Wing, Minnesota, and another from colleagues in Rochester, New York. So as an agenda, just did the introductions, and we will turn it over and I'll introduce them as they start their presentations. But I am going to start with Red Wing, Minnesota. And our two speakers today are Jay Powell and Levon Murray. And here's a quick bio of both of them. Jay Powell is in his 5th year serving as principal of Walter Maginnis High School. He has spent over 30 years in education as a teacher, coach, dean of students, and now as a principal. Levon Murray is the school counselor at Walter Maginnis High School in Red Wing, Minnesota. She has been working in a variety of roles in education for 27 years and has seen education change from when we did not have cell phones to when we did. And as a side note, she is a woman of many talents. In her spare time, she works with her husband with her mobile pet grooming service called Zoom and Groomin'. I just had to add that, Levon. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to the Red Wing team.
Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. We're excited to do this. We've been working with APDS a lot in the last 3 years since COVID hit, especially. And so we are really excited to be here. Jay, do you have anything to say?
No, you kind of said it all, Levon. Oh. Let's get into our. See, you're just the Zoom and Grooming person, so
yeah.
let's go ahead.
And I'll say if anybody wants information on the Zoom and Grooming service, just put it in the chat, and she'll get right back to you.
All right, so a little bit about us and about our facility. We are a facility for juveniles who have committed a serious crime or have habitual offenses that are charged and tried as felonies. Currently, we have 68 residents total. 65% of them have a known disability. 18 years old is the median age across our facility, including our graduated students, 17, the median age for school-age students. COVID has affected most of our students, especially during their 8th and 9th grade year. Our medium star grade equivalent screener scores, which is what we give all of our students when they first come into the facility and also periodically throughout their stay, as well as when they exit. But when they come in, currently they're at a 4.4 reading and a 4.5 math. And students are typically entering with, on an average, 6.8 earned credits.
So here at Walter Maginnis, we require 24 credits to graduate. State minimum is 21.5. And so here we require a few more than what the state minimum is. In the last 12 months, 22 students have earned their high school diploma or in their GED. And we're talking about that because this is all related to the tablets as far as our graduation rate. And we'll go over why that is. Our students typically earn about 7.3 credits per year. And we created a RISE award. Back when COVID first started, we do an award ceremony every quarter now. And so that's where we do our graduations and as well as our award ceremony for students who've kind of gone above and beyond. And so the RISE award was created as those students that went above and beyond, especially during the COVID time. And last year we had 126 occurrences in which students earned this award. And all of this is directly related to the use of our tablets, because that's mostly how they earn those extra credits.
Good. And a little bit more about our facility. We have 5 cottages on our campus, each of which can hold up to 16 residents. There's 2 wings in each of those cottages, and so 8 residents in each. And I don't remember, Levon, if we talk about it a little bit later, we probably do, but we do our scheduling is based on really where they live. And so those wings of each of the cottages are a specific school group that we'll talk a little bit more later. The Walter Maginnis High School, we're a separate building that serves all 5 of the cottages. And the Minnesota Department of Corrections, or DOC, is recognized as a correctional school district by the MDE. We have our own school district number and everything. Our school is, we run 7:30 to 3:30, Monday through Friday, and we're year round. So we go all summer, no Christmas vacation, no spring break, none of that. So it gives the opportunity for our students, many opportunities for them to earn those extra credits and get caught up on those credits because we are in school so much more than a typical high school here in Minnesota.
So you can see the school staff that we have here. Although we have 68 students currently, that number can fluctuate back and forth. This is what we offer as far as our teachers and our support that we have here. We do have 3 special education teachers that support our population as far as disability, and you know, again, that closely relates to the tablets because those are conversations that I'm having with special education teachers all the time. What's their ability? What can they do? What fits in with their IEP? And how does the tablet relate to that? Jay, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I don't think so. We'll get into so our classes, and you can see on this screen, we have, you know, the 4 core classes: math, language, arts, science, and social studies. We also offer Title I reading, math. We have a careers, personal finance, intro to media services. We have a variety. We have a PAYS lab that's in the process of getting created. Z-Space, our virtual reality, which is amazing. If you haven't seen something like that, to see the solar system or to see an engine from a vehicle taken apart in virtual reality is quite amazing. We do have a full wood shop, construction trades program. And then again, with the tablets, we have a credit recovery. We also have independent study, and we'll get more and more into the history of our tablets here soon, but also GED testing. We have enrichment courses, PSEO, all the things that you see there, they're listed. As was mentioned earlier, we do have 65% of our students do qualify for special education. So we have the 3 teachers. We also have a teaching assistant that's dedicated to special education, along with a school psychologist that provide services to those students as well.
So this was the schedule before we started using tablets, and we offered the 4 cores as well as our electives. And as Jay had stated earlier, our kids go to school based upon the cottage that they're in. So what's important about that is to remember that we might have a 12th grader in that cottage, in that group, with an 8th grader. And so somehow you have to figure out how you're going to teach to the middle and differentiate that not to the middle, but differentiate that instruction for those students. And so what was happening prior to 2018, when we did start using Edgenuity as our online credit recovery program, we worked very hard to make sure this didn't happen, but it did. And that was when students, let's say they had finished a certain course study like intermediate algebra, and that was a course that was being taught that term. Students were still attending that class because that's the class in which their cottage was going in. And we worked really hard starting, well, and I'm sure prior to me coming here, but in 2018, we started to really focus on those students and that were in that situation and making sure they weren't retaking classes that they had already taken. And again, this is when our tablets really came into play. What happened when we first started using online credit recovery was that it was through a desktop, and then we chose the different students that would go in and be able to earn that online credit through classes that we ran. And so in a span of 2 years, we had 24 young men graduate from Walter Maginnis High School once we started to change and start using that online credit recovery. And then COVID hit. And I think everybody can kind of relate to that. And so now all of a sudden we're looking at, here was our schedule before, now what do we do?
Levon picked that last slide. I had nothing to do with it. So
I haven't seen that little COVID thing in a while. It's very cool.
Yeah. That's fond memories.
I was wondering, trigger.
Trigger. Sorry,
we had owned the tablets for approximately 4 years prior to COVID, but we had not implemented them. But COVID forced us to implement the tablets quickly. One of the things that we needed to do and we had happen was that Wi-Fi was installed throughout the facility shortly before COVID became a factor. So that was kind of good timing on the part of the facility. And then a big part was we had to modify the schedule, but also make sure that we were offering our students the same education that they would receive if they were not incarcerated. We take great pride in during COVID, we shut down as an education facility for about a week total, the entire time of COVID. Other than that, we were providing face-to-face, not just virtual, but face-to-face education for all of our students. We had to get creative. If students were on lockdown, we'd have to go to their cottages, and everybody was wearing their hazmat suits, and we were doing all kinds of creative things, but making sure that we were giving them as much of the education as we possibly could. But this is when the tablets first entered our facility, and we were able to use those tablets. So we worked very hard. We partnered with APDS. This was really about the time when both Levon and I were really coming to the facility and started working together, but working and partnering with APDS to figure out how we could smoothly and successfully implement the tablets. Probably more successful than we were smooth early on.
So just a couple of things regarding that that Jay had talked about. Remembering that when we gave these tablets out to our students, this was brand new for everybody. And so there were a lot of questions and it's like, oh, we're giving our kids tablets. Well, a lot of staff saw that as tablets like their cell phone, right? And what they could access in that. The cell phone is a very powerful tool. And they were like, how are we going to be able to give that to students that are in a locked facility? What does that look like? And there were a lot of questions, and APDS, you guys helped us with those, you know, as far as the hiccups that we ran into and the questions that we had. And so what we had to convey to everybody was that we had to make sure that people understood that the applications that they had access to, there was parameters placed on those, and those parameters were placed on by APDS working with our IT department for the state of Minnesota to make sure that students couldn't get an access material and links that they shouldn't be able to, especially due to them being in a locked facility. And so I think it's really important to stress that. It wasn't like, oh, here's the tablets, here you go, and everybody was like, yay. It was like, here's the tablets, and a lot of people went, what? We're doing what? And so it was really helping our staff to understand what the tablets were. And so right now, the way we do this is that when a new student comes to us and they're assigned to Red Wing, they're immediately given a tablet. And every student is assigned a tablet. We keep track of who has those tablets, as well as their password and all of the other information related to those tablets on a spreadsheet. And we also have that on a shared drive. So a lot of people have access to that so that students can immediately find out, hey, listen, I don't remember my password. Can you get that for me? So it was a good way so that we were all able to communicate and share the responsibility of the tablet and everybody was doing that. The applications, we have several applications that we use, but the ones that are used extensively here, certainly the IXL, which is an online tool that develops skills and allows them to become competent in different areas based upon where they are at and what their ability is. And so our math teacher uses that as a resource within the classroom. The science teacher does that as well. We can even do independent studies using the tablet and IXL. We can give them independent studies using the IXL tool. Access to the National Library Systems, which is 26,000 book titles. It might even be more than that. I just remember something coming across my desk that said 26,000. So we had TED Talks, the GED and TABE Academy, which is imperative for those students that are on that course study. And so they always have access to be able to practice tests, figure out the skills, match the skills to what the GED is asking, as far as what they're missing, and be able to match that and study specifically in those areas. The other thing is the online credit recovery, Edgenuity, and our students use this extensively, and they're very excited. As a matter of fact, when we get new students here, they're like, "Hey, Miss Marie, I heard that we have tablets, and I heard that I can catch up on credits by being in class and using the tablet with Edgenuity." And so, I mean, there's a reputation out there for us that exists, that students already know that. So that's a good thing. Like I said, tablets have been imperative for us as far as what we've been able to give to our students. And right now, we graduate approximately 30% more students than what we were using since we've implemented the tablets. So which is pretty awesome. So, Jay,
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just think with the IXL, just the growth of that because of our tablet. When we started IXL, we only used the math component, and it was only being used by our facility here at the Department of Corrections. Since the implementation of tablets, IXL has grown to many different subject matters. It's also grown to being used at almost all of our adult facilities as well. So it's just something that, because of the tablets, was able to grow and grow and grow, that never would have grown to that extent without us using our tablets for that. So, and the kids were just able, I don't have the exact amount of hours, but the hours just went up that they use IXL. They use it. They go work on their math all the time, in the afternoons, in the evenings, on the weekends. That again wasn't an option before the tablet. Sorry, Mindy, making you go back and forth.
So
Sorry, I just wanted to note also that you bring up a really good point, Jay, that that the students in Red Wing have their tablets and they take their tablets with them to class, but also back into their living units as well.
Yeah, and they have access to them. I think there's some slide that I have as far as the times in which they have access to them.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
we have that coming. So our school also centers around PBIS, positive behavior interventions and support, to support safety in our school and good behavior, catch them being good. We catch that and reinforce that by awarding them PBIS points for every hour, for every class that they have. And they use those points to purchase things like supplies, markers, games, sketchbooks. But most importantly, once the tablets were implemented, we added the tokens, as Lavon put in here, coveted tokens. And she'll go over in a little bit, or one of us will, the amount of tokens that are being used. But by far, the biggest purchase on all their PBIS points is tokens, which allows them access to music, to games, and to movies that they absolutely love working for. And it's made a huge difference in our PBIS system here in the school.
And there's a quick question from Casey. If you are still using STAR.
yes.
There you go.
So as far as using the tokens, I just have to tell you one of the hiccups that we did have. Entertainment, once they found out that they had access to entertainment, I mean, this just opened up all sorts of excitement as far as our students, which still exists. But what was happening was this was before facial recognition. And so our students were trading their coins back and forth because it would be like, oh, I'll trade you this for in order for me to watch this video. And so being typical teenagers, they were doing things to what was advantageous for them. And so we did put on facial recognition that certainly limited that. And so just a hiccup that we had, but again, working with APDS to make how do we fix this problem? So right now, again, they can purchase the movies, music, games, and it's during set hours. So on school days, they do not have access to these apps until after school in the afternoon. And then on non-school days, they are typically available, and on weekends, 8:30 to 9 p.m. And so 8:30 in the morning to about 9. And so they have a lot of hours to be able to do this and be able to watch their movies that they want to watch. And usually by I think you change them every 30 days, Mindy, and usually by like that 28th day, the kids are coming to me and saying, "That's right, when are those movies changing? When are they changing?" Because they have watched a lot of them. And so we also use it as an incentive tool, not just PBIS, but also when they're doing their online credit recovery work that's outside of the class, outside of the school day, they can earn tokens, and they do it. They do Edgenuity, and they are excited about the opportunity to be able to earn tokens. Again, it's a great incentive that we use. Mindy, I don't know if you can get into what our outcomes are. If you can't, that's okay, but
I can't really easily, but I do, but we can send out a screenshot of the chart when we send out the presentation.
Sure.
But it does show a great increase in the hours spent in entertainment. I'll let you describe that.
So we went in and I ran a report for the whole year for 360 days. And each cottage averaged about 18,000 hours per year as far as the entertainment piece. And so, yes, it absolutely does work. And it's really all based on the behaviors we want to see, right? We want them to be able to catch up on credits. We want them to be demonstrating positive behaviors, and they do that because they know what the reward is going to be. And so it has been a great tool for us. The other thing that is allowed, I don't know, Jay, if you want me to go through this.
Yeah, you should. This is probably better for you.
Sure. So the use of messaging. Again, this freaked people out. Like, what do you mean they can message, school staff, and it was kind of scary for people at first, but we have found out that it's a great tool for our students as far as as far as being able to get out there what the question is. Usually the way that we had done this, as far as with how we communicated back and forth, unless they saw us in the hallway or saw us throughout the day, they would write a kite to us. And so it was kind of a form that the DOC or that the Red Wing had, that would be filled out by the student, then given to the officer. The officer would place it into a mailbox. The mailbox would then get picked up and then sorted back, and maybe about 2 or 3 days would pass before it would actually get back to us. Now, and it could be any question, like, Miss Murray, can you help me with this thing? And 2 or 3 days would pass before I would actually get that message. With messaging, we've eliminated that, and it is a great tool. Not only does it, because the one thing with tablets, and I talk about this later on, the one thing with the tablets is that allows our students to still learn the skills that they would learn if they were in a school in which they were not incarcerated, right? So how responsible use of a tablet, responsible use of how do we talk to a teacher compared to how do we text to our friends, or how do we text, to our family? And so it really, it helps them to learn that skill. And I think that's really important. Sometimes I'll even, some of the texts that I'll get, I'll say, hey, listen, can you reword that? For, again, just a teaching tool for us to be able to allow, the students the opportunity to be able to communicate better between each other, but also not between students. They can't communicate between students. It's just students to staff. And so, so messaging has been crucial and a way for us to communicate with students, and for students to be able to communicate with teachers they don't have maybe that term.
Along with that, if you just go back there again, sorry. One of the things that I think is important, and Levon mentioned it early on when we first implemented tablets, I think to just talk about the facility itself and their support has been awesome, but it's also been, careful driving on Levon and my part. She mentioned equating them kind of like the cell phones when we first got them. And that's a perfect analogy or example. They, I think, originally thought, oh, we're giving them the device that they can go to Facebook or do YouTube or do all these different things on the internet, which never was the case. They've always been very, very regulated, and getting facility or the administration to understand that this is a tool. This is a resource for our students, no different than a textbook would be. So their knee-jerk reaction on some of our bumps have been, pull the tablets. They don't get them anymore. So we've really worked through that, and they're just awesome. The messaging was the same way. Oh my gosh, we're going to have all these inappropriate messages and so on. The last time I looked at the data, we had over 100,000 messages from students to staff. And we have to date had 3 inappropriate messages that have been documented out of all those messages. I think that speaks huge, not only to our students, but also to just our staff and our administration, and teaching that and dealing with that and using that as a learning tool. Have Levon and I got messages that, yeah, maybe we wouldn't say it quite like that face to face. and you work with the kids and they're able to learn that way. So I just want to put that piece in, that the facility has also been very helpful and very much a partner with us in working with APDS. So, okay, now you can go.
Sorry. Okay.
Thank you.
So just in summary, as far as what we use the tablets for, and you know, the biggest thing is that it allows them the opportunity to access more educational programs that they did not have access to prior to this, and also not just enhancing their learning, but also their social skills, which for the population that we have is important. It also allows them to positively use technology. And so when they're returning back to the community or going back into whatever their post-secondary plan is, they're not behind others that were not incarcerated. And so, so how to use technology, how to use it appropriately, how do I use it when I go to college or go to a training program or you know, anything, or go back to school. And so many schools have moved to texts through tablets or Chromebooks or whatever it is that they're using, and our students can stay, you know, they can stay competitive with that. Also, that the tablets, in conjunction with our online credit route program, what it has done is it allowed our most disenfranchised population to develop an academic plan that allows them the opportunity just to get back on track as far as graduation, earning credits, or earning a high school diploma or a GED. And I absolutely credit our online programming and our and the tablets with that. And so that when a student goes back to their community, they can, you know, they can say, I'm almost on track, or I can still graduate with my class, and that's really important to them.
Why don't you finish that one up, Levon?
Okay, so the entertainment application, which we talked about, is a great incentive for our students. The communication has increased dramatically. And students feel that they feel heard, which I think is important. They also feel like they're driving their own education, and so I think that's really important, that our population knows that they're in control of their own education, and they get to, you know, it's not like Ms. Murray sits down and says, here's your plan. It's Ms. Murray sits down with the student and says, okay, what would be most helpful for you? What works best for you? And that the tablet brings a whole lot of different applications for us to be able to do that and focus on different learning styles. And then also just being competitive in a technology-driven work world. You know, how do we communicate with bosses? How do we communicate with people who aren't just our friends? And so the tablets have allowed that to happen.
Levon, I think we need to do a shout out to Dr. Patty Pop, who's answering questions for us in the chat, which is absolutely awesome. Yeah. And Patty was actually the person that brought the APDS tablets into our facility originally back a few years ago, and was instrumental in working with Levon and I and APDS and getting the tablets up and running and continuing on as we have done throughout these years. So Patty, thank you very much for answering the question and supporting us all these years.
Yeah, and Patty has gone on and now helps support the secondary ed program in the adult facilities, as well as the post-secondary ed programs, which has really expanded greatly in Minnesota.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you, Patty.
Levon, there's a question for you in the chat.
Yes, I just saw that. And so, do you mind if I just answer that as far as?
No, please.
So one of the questions were, does the school counselors engage with the tablets? And if so, what is most beneficial? And absolutely, I engage with that as far, and for a long time, I would be the one, I was kind of that go-between person, the go-between person between APDS, Patty, and the tablets. And so I would say the most beneficial is helping the students build an academic plan and knowing what the applications are, and you know, again, giving them the driver's seat as far as their education. You know, because we, you know, again, I will say, because we have so many different applications available to us, that we, knowing the student, knowing who our student is, and knowing what challenges have been there in the past for that student, and having conversations about that, allows us to be able to set the best academic plan that we can give to our students. And so that's been it's what's increased our GED and high school diploma rates, is us being able to have the opportunity to be able to give that to students.
I'm gonna just wrap up this portion and save some questions that we'll again have for the Minnesota team at the end. This was great. I love personally a lot of what you talked about with using messaging. And for the folks that are newer customers coming on, it has been a really powerful tool, I know, for the Red Wing team here, but across all of our customers, we have a lot of data supporting that if students feel that they have the connection and someone is looking at their work that they can talk to, they are more likely to get through the programs on the tablet and engage with the tablets, which has been really great to see. Okay, so I'm not sure, are there any more immediate questions? There's one more question that I will let you guys answer, and then I'm going to move it over to the Rochester team, and then we can have questions for any of the panelists again at the end. So the question is, are tablets used for wraparound services from therapists and social workers?
Absolutely. And so our therapists will actually, we have the social emotional programming through Edgenuity on our tablets, and it's called Purpose Prep. And our therapists will assign our students those courses. And it's not just say, hey, go do an online course. It's, hey, do this and we'll do this together. And then, you know, it's just kind of a launching pad for many of our students to be able to use kind of a programmed SEL course, social emotional learning course, but then also our therapist digs in deeper with our students as far as how that relates. And especially when they have to have written responses, sometimes it's really hard for them to say what they want to say. And so it's easier for them to type it. And so all of our behavioral health does assign these courses.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lavon. Okay, let's move over to our Rochester team. And just someone had sent me a question about the end time for this in general. And I just wanted to be clear because I think we sent something out that said 12 to 2, 12 to 1, but it actually is 12 to 1:30. So I'm sorry about the miscommunications there. We do plan to go until 1:30. So there will be time for questions. On the Rochester team, I wanted to introduce two individuals that I'm not seeing their oh yeah, now I see them. Okay, great. All right, so it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Michael Allen II. He is the Director of Youth and Justice Programs in Rochester, New York. He has over 15 years of school leadership experience in various settings, including middle school, high school, and alternative schools. His journey in the field of education has been driven by a deep commitment to ensuring that every student has access to high-quality education, regardless of their individual challenges or unique learning needs. In his current role, he continues to advocate for marginalized populations to ensure they are equipped with the tools that will ultimately lead to academic success and personal growth. And he is joined today by Ms. Serafina Shinapi. And Ms. Shinapi is in her 16th year as a secondary math teacher with the Rochester City School District's Youth and Justice Program. She has spent the majority of her career working with students in the juvenile justice system. Her mission in this work is to ignite students' passion for learning while encouraging them to be steadfast towards their goal. Okay, so with that, I am going to turn it over to the two of you and just let me know when you want to switch slides.
Okay, thank you. First, I want to say, or at least give a shout out to the folks in Minnesota. I'm very inspired by all the things that they're doing with the tablets. And I'm hoping that one day we'll get there, because we're not quite there yet, which we're going to share, but I really am inspired by some of the information that was shared. So kudos to the folks in Minnesota. So we'll start off by providing just a brief overview of where we are and what we represent. For those of you who don't know, Rochester is located in upstate New York, in the middle between Syracuse and Buffalo. So if you know that area, Rochester is just in the middle of those cities. So our program, the Youth and Justice program, actually operates a total of 5 sites, but 3 of those sites are dedicated to serving incarcerated youth. And those sites are in partnership with 2 entities. One is the Monroe County Sheriff's Department or Sheriff's Office, and also Monroe County. Now, our 2 facilities or 3 facilities that we operate are the Monroe County Jail. So my teachers go into the Monroe County Jail to provide the educational services for students there. They also go into the Juvenile Detention Center, which is the Monroe County Detention Center, to provide educational services for students there. Earlier this year, the Monroe County Children's Detention Center actually opened up another site that right now we're calling the Annex. And this is due to, unfortunately, the influx of youth that have been detained and arrested in our community. And so that site opened up probably in late March. So we currently operate or serve students in 3 different locations at this point. In terms of capacity, our main detention facility has a capacity of 31 students, 31 youth. And the Annex, which just opened up, as I mentioned earlier this year, has a capacity of 10, which will increase once the construction there is completed, which should be sometime in December. Will house up to 18 students there. And our Monroe County Jail has no capacity, but we serve approximately right now on average about 25 students at that particular site. Our students at the jail are predominantly GED track students. So I would say 85% of those students have already or previously dropped out of high school by the time they get to us. So we provide GED programming for those students. At the detention center, it's the inverse. So the majority of those students are high school age students with a few GED students or GED track students that we serve there. Our students are all pre-adjudicated, but there are some occasions where they may finish their sentences. If they're short enough, they may finish their sentences at that particular site as well. In terms of staffing, we have all the core teachers, math, ELA, science, and social studies, all certified teachers in New York State. We also have special education teachers. And in addition to that, we have some what we call exploratory or elective teachers. So we have PE, Spanish, business, art, and health. Those teachers are itinerant between the various sites, so they're not dedicated at one site. So there's one health teacher who's split between those 3 sites. We also have a counselor, a social worker, and due to some of the additional funding, grant funding that we've received, we've also identified 2 additional positions, a math intervention teacher, which is actually Ms. Shinapi, and an ELA intervention teacher as well. In terms of the school day, again, each site has a different schedule, but the school day at the detention site requires 5.5 hours of instruction a day. And at the jail, it's 3 hours a day of instruction for each of the youth there. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Okay, in terms of our tablet program, just to provide a little bit of context, we started our tablet program, or we planned to start our tablet program just in right around 2020, and this was just before COVID hit. And I like the little COVID slide that the Minnesota folks had up. Wish I had that COVID slide as well. But COVID, like Minnesota, it really impacted our implementation of the program at that time. Unlike Minnesota, our facilities were actually shut down for quite a while. So that put a damper in our plan to implement the tablet program as we had originally anticipated. So we had to make some shifts and adjustments the best we could under those circumstances. So our staff couldn't actually report to the site at that time. So we did some things virtually, which was, again, another challenge, but we were unable to, again, implement the tablet program like we planned to that particular year. That year also, or I'm sorry, the following year, the site started to undergo some construction. Both of our sites underwent some level of construction and some changes in leadership. So that also put a little bit of a damper on our implementation of the program. We initially started off with cellular tablets, thinking that they would work a little better based on the infrastructure in the facility, but they didn't work out as good as we had liked at that particular time. So we did switch over midway through to Wi-Fi tablets, and which posed another issue, which was getting on the actual Wi-Fi at our sites. So all of these pieces we have been working on for the past couple of years to try to address in different ways. One of the ways that the individuals at APDS has definitely helped us out was trying to get and navigate through all of these issues, was providing us with waypoints, which are basically mobile hotspots that we were able to connect our tablets on. So that assisted us with implementing our tablet program. So again, for the past couple of years, we've been really trying to navigate and work through the best ways to work around all of the various challenges working with the facility, which I forgot to mention as well. We are a school district, and we're partnered with these entities to go in and provide the instruction for the students. So our staff are actually district employees, school district employees that support the students in that particular way. So they're not staff at the facility. So fast forward to currently, this past year, we had an opportunity to, again, work and meet with the folks at APDS on a more regular basis and try to look at different ways that we can implement the tablet program. Because when we originally started, our goal was to provide equity and access to our students. And we weren't doing that quite as much as we had, again, initially planned. So one of the things we wanted to do was be more intentional about how we utilize the tablets. So this year, we decided to modify our schedule and really try to be intentional about providing opportunities for students to engage with the tablets. Unlike our folks in Minnesota, we do not have the staffing to support the utilization of the tablets outside of the school day. So that was one of our struggles initially, is trying to get the students on the tablets outside of the instructional day. But the site staff, security staff, their priority obviously is the security aspect of things. So that was a bit of a struggle to get the tablets into the hands of students outside the school day. So one of the things we tried to do was be a little bit creative with our master schedule. And so this year we implemented an enrichment block, which takes place the first hour of the day. And that allows for our tablets to be introduced to students in addition to during the school day. But it allows another block of opportunity for our students to engage in other ways, in additional opportunities for, which was mentioned earlier, credit recovery, additional opportunities to engage and hopefully close some of the gaps in learning that students may have. So it opened up some doors for us in different ways by adding this additional block. So you can change the slide now. What I'm going to do is transition to Ms. Chinapi, who's going to provide some more specifics about how we're utilizing the tablets at this point.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Allen. So as Mr. Allen said, we are being more intentional about our tablet use this year. The last 3 years, we've seen a lot of adjustments and shifts in our students and our programming here. So we're really going to focus on what we're doing this year. So Mr. Allen mentioned our enrichment period, and this is something that's built into every day. So morning, 8 o'clock, students come in, they have an enrichment block. That enrichment block can be with the math intervention teacher, the ELA intervention teacher, our counselors and social workers, or it could be with our special education teacher who facilitates the core enrichment. Our ELA and math intervention teachers can utilize the tablets. There's some programming on there that I personally use as the math intervention teacher. The Colibri I've been finding incredibly helpful this year at really building our students up into the level that they need to be at to participate in grade level math. And there's also, we have Brightspace D2L, which is a great program that I, as a math teacher, can create materials for students and I can individualize it there. Our counselors and social workers, I know there's a question about this before. We have some programming that is built into the tablets that we're using. There's Tapuku and I'm sorry, I'm math intervention, so my brain's the master plan. I had to think of that one for a second. These are both programs that our counselors and social workers are exploring. They're building curriculum around and utilizing that within that block. In addition, so we have the core enrichment. So our core teachers, math, science, social studies, ELA teachers, our exploratory teachers are putting content on these tablets so that students have about one assignment a week that they can do during that block. So our students have engaged in those kind of programmings there. Sorry, I was just looking at the question that was coming through.
And I just want to chime in on that. And I
Yep.
just want to chime in on that, Ms. Shinapi, in terms of the core enrichment piece. One of the things that we're trying to target is closing those learning gaps for students. So during regular instruction, my expectation of teachers is to provide students with grade level instruction. And this enrichment block is to try to close some of those gaps. So it allows students to practice on some of those skills that they may be lacking to meet grade level expectations.
Thank you. So that's one of that's how we're using the enrichment period. Some other things that I've noticed, students are really into the National Corrections Library. So during that enrichment block, I'll see them go into the corrections library, see what books are available, check them out, they're reading. We've also been using that block for our pre and post assessment. So we actually use TABE Academy, and we're doing all of our pre-assessments on there, and that's been super helpful to have that period of time just for that, because those assessments can take quite a bit of time from the classroom. Now we have a set time for those. In addition to, okay, so we're going to talk about the classroom use, because they're also being utilized in the classroom. So they get them in the morning and they may have them sitting beside them, or the teachers may put them aside, but when they have their classroom instruction, our teachers are utilizing these programs there as well. So some of the ways that our teachers are using the tablets are through station-based learning. So they may be working with a small group of students on one assignment while another group is working on the tablets. So the reason this is helpful is for our students are in mixed level classes. So you may have, I'm going to speak from the math perspective, you may have an 8th grade math student, you may have an Algebra 1 student, you may have a geometry student, and they're all sitting in front of you. So having the tablets and being able to say, okay, I'm going to do this with this group of students and this with another group of students has been incredibly helpful. Our teachers for our GED students, they may also be in those classes. Our teachers have really bought into the pre-built GED course that is on their GED Academy. Our students, they really do love it because they get their scores. They can do their practice tests. They can do lessons. They can go as fast or as slow as they need to get the content. Just a little a little story. Last year we had a student, and I just remember the day he took his pre-test, and he was walking around proud, so proud, saying, I got a 160 on my practice test. I'm going to rock the GED. And he did in turn rock the GED, which I really do think it was a huge confidence boost for him to see how well he could do and actually see a score attached to that.
I love that story. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great time. So another thing that our teachers use our tablets for is assessments of learning targets. So they could create a quiz in D2L. They can create an assignment in D2L just to see, hey, did they really get what I was trying to teach them? So that's something that our teachers have been working on trying to implement. And as I said, that the individualized instruction that we're able to do with these tablets is just incredible. You can load, lessons right on there where you're teaching on the board and you have a video of you teaching and they have to do notes, and they can do that with these tablets. So that has been super helpful in my practice as a math teacher. And I know along with others, it has been helpful. I believe that's all for my slide.
Okay, and we were not quite sure of the total audience. We didn't know if there were individuals that were contemplating partnering with HPDS to bring tablets on board. So we thought we'd add a slide just to share some of our lessons learned and best practices, just things that if we could do this again, or again, lessons learned over the course of the past couple of years in implementing a tablet program. The first thing goes back to at least what we've struggled with is the facility responsibilities and just ensuring that the facility is aware of their role, because it's not just a school thing. This is actually a facility program or partnership with the facility at the very least. So one of the things we wish we would have done to begin with was make sure the facility understood that from an infrastructure standpoint, that they have a role and responsibility in this. And I don't think the facility quite understood their role in starting off the tablet program in terms of the implementation anyway. So that includes that buy-in and support, which the folks from Minnesota mentioned as well, in terms of the support from the facility is needed, especially to start the program off. Which leads us to the next piece, which is the rollout and onboarding and the input. And the rollout to my teaching staff, as I mentioned, when COVID hit, it did throw a wrench in our onboarding. APDS did provide some support with that, some PD for my staff, which we did record at that particular time. But just that rollout is very important. Every year, at least in our district, you have some turnover with teaching staff. So onboarding new teachers and having a plan in place for new individuals as they come on board is important. The onboarding with the students. When we initially had the COVID year, we tried to have the tablets utilized for the students to utilize when we weren't there in the facility. But what ended up happening was, because we didn't have our staff there to support and to monitor, I think that first year, when we tried this, we had some damaged tablets and we had some individuals who weren't monitoring the students as they should have at that particular time. So we had to, again, modify our plan. So making sure that, again, everyone, the site staff, the teaching staff, and the students are all onboarded with how to not only navigate the tablets, but even something as simple as charging the tablets when they need to be charged. And the onboarding and PD should be ongoing. We always talk about this, but every year just revisiting refreshers to make sure staff stay consistent with whatever policies and procedures you have in place, which leads me to the next piece, which is the scheduling, which I talked to a little bit earlier. One of the struggles that we still are working out is just allowing our students to have access beyond the school day, because that would provide obviously more opportunities for our students to engage. But tweaking our schedule to at least have an opportunity for them to engage outside of the regular class periods has been very beneficial to our students, and is serving as basically our response to intervention program in the morning time. So that has allowed that. The other piece around policies and guidelines is working with the facility, making sure the facility and you are working hand in hand to identify what those policies and practice are. Again, the folks from Minnesota mentioned the messaging and even the biometrics piece, which we had some pushback initially with even getting that started. So just making sure the facility is on board with whatever policies and procedures are put in place. What I would also advise as well is maybe doing a pilot with a certain population or a certain group or a certain part of the facility that will allow you to iron out some of the wrinkles before you go full blown or full scale in your particular facility, depending on how large your facility is. But I think that would work out great to allow you to, again, be able to iron out some of the potential wrinkles ahead of time. And then the last piece is just having a sustainability plan and understanding that for us, every time we use grant funding, we know that sometimes grant funding runs out. So having a sustainability plan, how are we going to pay for the license renewals? How are we going to repair tablets if we need to repair tablets? Just having that as part of your plan as well would be very, very beneficial for individuals. Okay, I think that might be, I don't know if we have another. Oh. So again, from Rochester, on behalf of Ms. Shinappy and I, we do want to thank you for your time. And we do want to say that we appreciate the partnership from APDS. Over the past 3 to 4 years, they've increased their level of involvement and support with us, and that's been very beneficial, again, to us and our staff. And so we appreciate the partnership, and we look forward to the continued partnership with them as well.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. We also appreciate you and Ms. Shinappy on our end as well. What I loved about your showcasing your implementation and the Red Wing implementation together is that you've made it work in 2 very different use cases. Red Wing is allowed to have their tablets in their living units and in the classroom and just have them with them. So they've really responded to that, to have them using their programs beyond the classroom. And your team had limitations there, both from the security staff and the connection too. It was, a whole Wi-Fi implementation would need to happen to get these into the living units. And you have really taken that and been very intentional about how to use these tablets, and to see this come together, because I haven't been meeting with you guys every week. You've had E, and it's really amazing. So very impressive. And you stole my thunder, because I was going to ask you and also the Red Wing team about lessons learned. If there was one thing that you could tell folks that are implementing now or just getting started with the tablets, what would it be? And you've already given a whole slide of those. But Levon and Jay, do you have from your end too, what was the biggest challenge or something that you would want folks to know in getting a successful tablet program started?
I would say that probably the same things Mr. Allen talked about, as far as the staff and again, that thought that they would have so much access to so many different things that just simply wasn't true. And so certainly that was a hurdle for us. But our security staff was when they go back to their living units, the connection between school and the cottage staff is really close, and has been for a long time. And so it used to be that if there was something that a student chose not to do during the day, the teacher would just send the folder back to the cottage and say, hey, listen, this kid still needs to work on this and they need to finish it. And just like if they were at home, there would be a consequence. And so it was much easier, I think, for our staff to kind of wrap their brains around what it was that we were trying to do with the tablets. And yeah, there were a lot of questions, but they certainly worked in tandem with us. And I would say, Patty was instrumental in this, and our warden, and totally embracing this and saying, we need to do this. This is the right thing for kids. And I think that helped too, having that support from, you know, our higher administration was imperative for us.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. And I think what Mr. Allen was talking about, the infrastructure too, is really key. I think rolling out the tablets and not having them work is one of the most frustrating things that can happen. And along with having our Wi-Fi set up, we also had to, and again, this goes to Dr. Pott, but the wherewithal that we purchased charging carts for every one of our cottages. So their routine at the end of the day is they put them in the charging cart and make sure that they're all getting charged at every night, so they're ready to go for us in the morning. And then the continual to work on. We've had the, I don't know, Mindy, can I call it the opportunity to roll over our tablets 3 times and get new tablets?
It's been an honor of an opportunity.
Yeah, everything's an opportunity, right? We just went through that. But again, then we supplied our staff with professional development, where we had people from APDS put on a training for our staff. We had tablets in the hands of all of our staff, so they knew exactly what the students were going to be going through. So I think that is critical also in making it be successful. Like Rochester has commented, it takes a village. It takes all of us to do this. It's not just the school or just the facility or just the kids. It's got to be, you know, everybody working together to make this work.
That's a great point. The partnership between the facility staff and education staff is absolutely crucial. There's a question in the chat. You guys probably see it, but I'll let any of you answer it. Any other issues with tablets getting damaged intentionally or safety concerns that facility staff may be concerned about?
Yes. But it's not really a concern. I mean, when you think about it, we have 100 tablets, and throughout a year, 100 different tablets are handed out to our students. Jay, I can't remember the last time we had one that was damaged.
It wasn't too long ago. We have, it's the cost of doing business. We have very volatile, 16 to 18-year-old male students. And I don't know if that was ever identified also, that all of our students are male, by the way. And so we have some, they get angry, they get upset. And from the facility wide, other than the thought of a student chucking a tablet at somebody, they've made it through all of the securities tests and so on. So really no concerns from the facility wise. We've just had to deal with, tablets being damaged or destroyed in some cases, and we move on from that. So.
And I will say on our end, that original rollout, again, and I would say it was partially due to the way we had to roll it out. We were trying to get something into the hands of our students at that time during COVID. And so our staff were not on site with students to show them how to navigate. And we kind of left it, if you will, in the hands of the site staff. And their focus, as I mentioned, was primarily on the security of the students and the staff in the facility. And during that time, we had, I want to say it was about 7 tablets that were damaged, and damaged in various ways. 5 of them we were able to get fixed. It was just a screen. They scratched the screen. And I think one of them was a case. And the other 2 may have been the actual port, that we had an issue with the port. But then when we were able to get back into the facility and we rolled it out, as we indicated earlier, we have not, knock on wood. Oh, I take that back. We do have 2 tablets, Ms. Siniak, just want to let you know. But they're port problems. They're not damaged in that way, but they're just not charging. But so no other issues with damaged tablets after that initial implementation or rollout. And then there's a question about the role of on-site staff to assist with tablet access. And currently it's very limited. As I indicated, they were going through a huge staff. I think Ms. Shinapi can attest their staff turnover at that site. The security staff turnover was, I don't even know how to describe it. It was like every day we were getting new folks in. So that was a difficult thing to manage as well when you have, just in the classroom, when you have new staff that are engaging with the youth, but also engaging with our teachers. That made it a little bit difficult, but their access or assistance with rolling out the tablets was very limited. And now, even now, it's just ensuring that students are compliant. So it has nothing to do with charging, nothing to do with their role, and that's, you know, out of my realm. So I just ask that they support us in terms of managing the students from a behavioral standpoint, but not anything instructional at this point. I hope that answers the question.
I think so. There's another question I'll let you guys answer it if you can. Have you all had any students with disabilities following the occupational course of study? Does the tablet offer programs to assist in acquiring needed hours? Also, what accommodations are provided on the tablets? I can talk to the accommodations piece, but I don't know if any of you want to talk to the occupational course of study.
We don't use the occupational course study. That you know, our special ed staff has not used that. But you know, it's certainly a resource you could use. As far as how do we modify or accommodate for the disabilities, with our tablets, you know, the apps that we use, whether it be IXL, Edgenuity, they already have some of those accommodations and modifications built within the program. And so it's really working with the student and the special ed teacher to say, okay, what works best? What do we need to do? And so you can't just give it to the student and say, okay, go work on this. You do have to take into account their personal learning, ability, their style, all of that. Those are things that you have to take into account. And so so that's, we talk about accommodation and modification all of the time as far as tablets. I mean, we get some kids who are just like, I don't work well on with the tablets. Okay, well, then what do you work well with? And so and usually they come around as far as the tablet, you know, as far as using it as a learning tool. They all use it for the entertainment. Doesn't matter. They they figured
that out.
there's no support that we have to offer for that. But as far as some of the academic opportunities that it has, you can't just give it to them. You do have to sit down and really work with that student individually.
Lavonda,
and I will piggyback on that as well, just to say that for some students, not just students with disabilities, but all students, going back to our enrichment block, it allows for students to, again, work at maybe their independent level. So you can, in certain cases, provide a student. Now the teacher has to do some work on the back end to tailor things, but they can upload assignments, additional practice skills, and it should be the way we're trying to roll this out on our end is an extension of what's occurring in the classroom. So again, during the classroom, it's grade level content that the students should be exposed to. But during that enrichment block, we're trying to close some of those gaps. So it could be just skill building, but at an independent level that allows the students to have more additional practice. And one other thing we're doing, Ms. Shinapi, I don't know if you want to talk to, I don't think we touched upon it, which is some of the other programming around the work-based learning piece.
So actually I was thinking about mentioning that the work-based learning, we did part of our enrichment block. Mr. Allen's bringing in folks from the community to share information about different career opportunities that may be available to students. And I do know that, you know, the tablets have a lot of great programming for the occupational studies, if you will, with built into it. So the students can take a questionnaire survey to find out like their, I forget what the terminology used, but their profile maybe is what it's called. Their employment profile, I think. So that's something that's been used. We also used OSHA, and we've had students get OSHA certified right in the tablet, and that's been super helpful for our students who have come to us with a degree already, whether they have their GED or high school diploma. It gives them something additional that they can do.
Thank you, Ms. Shinapi. Just to close out the piece on the accommodations, to just know, so as Levon said, many of the programs on the tablet have different settings and things for accommodations. Also, the tablets as a whole, we have a big initiative within APDS to make sure that we can provide all sorts of accommodations on the tablet. So you can now adjust text size and screen readers and things like that on the tablet itself. So, if there's anything that any of you have questions on, feel free to reach out on that. The questions are coming in fast and furious. So this is to any of you. What consequences are utilized whenever a juvenile mishandles or breaks their tablet? Does the juvenile have to do an assignment to be able to use the tablet again? Do you have an extra tablet on hand to replace the broken tablet? Good question.
Okay, I'll chime in that one first. That one's easy for me. Right now we have 1-to-1 at 2 of our sites. So if a student breaks a tablet or damages a tablet, we do a mini investigation. And if the investigation determines that it was intentional, then the student loses their tablet privileges. It's that simple. Now, initially, we do have a contract and agreement and all those things prior. But if they break a tablet, then I go and move forward with replacing the tablet, but that student would not get another tablet. That's our process.
Yeah, and ours is very similar to that. We do have extra tablets. We do have tablets on hand. Again, if it's determined, if it's they did it on purpose, that's a whole different thing. And with us, they're also charged restitution for the tablets if they've damaged that. We will maybe, keep them off the tablet for a small amount of time, not a whole lot. We use that as a learning experience. And like mentioned earlier, that this is really an educational tool for them. So to deny them that part of their education, we're just not comfortable with. So they do end up getting another tablet now, and we've never had one, knock on wood, a chronic offender or a repeat offender that has damaged their tablets. That might be handled a little bit differently if that would happen.
Right. Can the Minnesota reps explain what went into their decision to assign a specific tablet to each youth? In North Carolina, we will have 1-to-1 access, but we were not planning to assign a specific tablet to a specific youth.
You were around when that decision was made. That was prior to me. So.
Well, and you know what? Patty is probably the best person to answer that. Sorry, Patty. If you wanted to hop on as to why the decision was made, but when I got here, there was already there was a tablet ordered for every student. And the way that I view that is it's kind of like a textbook, right? So every student has access to that textbook. The other thing is that when it's also a level of accountability. And so, we talk about damage to our tablets or whatever else it may be. Our students view those as theirs, right? Like that's their way to, have access to opportunities as far as education, have access to entertainment and other incentives that they have as far as their tablets. And so they really it's their responsibility to take care of that tablet. And they really do. I mean, they know where those tablets are at all times. And so So why Minnesota decided to order one for every student, I wasn't involved in that, but I know what's evolved as far as, you know, having our students have their own tablets is really that accountability piece.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it was, and why they would have, instead of just checking one out, or obviously you would know via the password if anything was done specifically, but the accountability and the damage and that type. Levon, I'll let you take the GED testing one.
Well, I just want to chime in on that piece as well for us, just the tablet piece. We have one-to-one, and we initially tried to assign, but due to our groups change so often that it was tough to move tablets from one location to another on the facility site. So we decided to just make sure that everyone has a tablet versus assigning specific tablets to it. But it was more because of the constant moving. We could have a group of 6 in one classroom environment one day, and then 2 of those students are moved to another group the next day. So when we come in, now we have a need for additional tablets in one place. So it was just too much shifting that would have been required for the staff on a daily basis.
Before we get into the GED question, one other to answer your question, Nicole, APDS has a couple different ways that we try to prevent credential sharing between students, because that is, you know, the easiest way to have something inappropriate happening on a tablet is for students to share their credentials. One is the biometric authentication, which you can roll out if you're not assigning to a specific tablet. The other, which we are just rolling out now, piloting in a couple of facilities, is assigning a specific device to a student so that that student can only log into that specific tablet. So depending on what works for your facility, we recommend wholeheartedly one or the other or both of these things to prevent any sort of student messaging. I'm sorry about the background noise. I'll go back on mute and let Levon answer the GED question.
So I just want to check. So how do we use the GED testing as far as how it works on our tablets? So the GED testing is really about the practice. We are a testing site, and so we can administer the tests, the GED test here, as well as the TABE test. And so, which is a whole separate computer, it's a security, that's a security issue as far as GED. But as far as the practice, our students have access to the TABE GED Academy. They have access to the IXL GED and TABE, and they also have access to EdTech. And so now it really becomes what exactly do you need? Because each one of them, although it's all GED practice, some students really like the GED TABE Academy, others like what's there on IXL. I mean, it really just depends. Again, it allows them to be the drivers of their education as far as how they learn best. And so what happens here is, as far as the GED, the students will take that TABE, the locator test, and then that's when we sit down with the student. Once we get what those results are, that's when we sit down with the student and say, okay, here's the skills that you need to be working on. Here's all the ways in which you can get it. And the students, you know, I can't say there's one over the other that they prefer. It's just that they have just a whole lot of different opportunities, and they all align to the TABE test or the GED ready, and so it's great because they can work specifically on that skill. The other thing we have, I forgot, it's not just those. We also have Edgenuity, our online credit recovery program, also has GED supports in it as well. So just a variety of different ways.
So I'll piggyback on that and say Rochester is also just using the GED Academy for practice, but the actual GED is done off of the tablets.
Great. So we only have a couple of minutes. So what I would really like to do is to end with my colleague Leah's question, which was if each of you could say what some positive feedback from students you've received on the tablet, and then we can end with that.
Our students love it. Like when there's a problem with the tablet, believe me, we are getting messages immediately. And our students, when they leave here, they fill out, forms, as far as what their experience was like here, and they'll talk about the tablets. They'll talk about the fact that they have access to the tablets and what it did for them, and so our students recognize it. And that's the most important thing. That, I mean, they're the reason why we have the tablets and what their needs are. And so our students love their tablets.
Yeah, I think mine would be, Levon mentioned earlier that we have a award ceremony after every term, and that we have this award for RISE award for going above and beyond credit. And because of the tablets, kids have been able to do that. And just one of our recent award ceremonies, we had a young man get an award for the RISE award for his use on a tablet all the time. And he came back and he goes in front of the whole crowd. There's about 120 people watching this awards, and he's yelling, "This is the first award I've ever received in my life from school." And he got it because of the tablet, and plain and simple. Those are the experiences you just can't not hold near and dear to your heart. So like Levon said, they love their tablet.
I would say a testament to how the students feel about the tablets at our program is every time I walk through a room, at least one student says, "Ooh, I get a tablet." And they get so excited when they see me because they know I have the tablet cart key. So it is something that they really look forward to.
And I'll just piggyback on that comment from Ms. Shinapi. Is a testimonial. I had one young lady, and I think we all may get this, which I call a good problem, is students who actually earn their diploma. And now what? And this was a young lady who had earned her diploma. She initially did not want to engage with the tablets at all. And I'm like meeting with her, like, come on, just give it a shot. And she's like, no, I don't want to do the tablets. I'll practice my GED, but I don't want to do anything on the tablets. So I said, okay, but it's here if you want it. So she went ahead, she ended up earning her GED, but she still was with us after she earned her GED. And so Ms. Shinapi, I believe, and our counselor had some conversations with her about the OSHA certifications on the tablets. And she said, I'll give it a shot. And she was our first student, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Shinapi, who earned her OSHA certification on the tablet. So that was a testimony of, first, for us to keep pushing our students. But secondly, that someone who didn't want to engage in a certain way, once she found something, which the tablets do offer, found something that is of interest to her, she was able to engage. So, and I think that's what all of our students do with the technology piece. So that was something positive to see. And that's what we're seeing in a lot of our students, is once they find something that they can engage with beyond the entertainment piece, but something educational that they can engage with, they're really in tune to that. So my goal is to hopefully get to Minnesota's point where we're utilizing them outside of our instructional day, though. So that's our next goal for us.
Amazing. Well, we are at time, and I just wanted to thank from the bottom of my heart the Minnesota and Rochester teams. I have really, really enjoyed working with you over the past 3-4 years, whatever it's been. And so to have you come and present your experiences to other customers that we haven't worked with as long or have had, different paths, really, really appreciate it.